Have I been using autism as an excuse? Let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome to my channel. Today let's talk about the fine line between using autism as an excuse and using it as an explanation. I was diagnosed at about age 62, 3 years ago, and a couple of times it has been suggested to me that I was using autism as an excuse. The first time was when I forgot to make a very important phone call, and this was shortly after I was diagnosed, and I said, when I apologized, I said it was because I was autistic, and the person rightly called me on it and said, "Don't use autism as an excuse for your bad behavior," and she was absolutely right. The second time, I'm working the 12 steps because I'm in recovery, and I was working on the 4th and 5th steps, which have a lot to do with looking over your past, and my sponsor very gently suggested that he thought I should be careful not using autism as an excuse. And we looked at it and we discussed it, and in that case I was not using it as an excuse. So a lot of the decisions I made would have been different had I been diagnosed at that time. Understanding the relationships between my autism and my past behavior is central to me learning how to live a better life. So how do you tell the difference? Why is one different than the other? Well, it's a fine line for sure. I've thought about this a lot, and I've sort of settled on 4 different factors that help me determine whether I'm using autism as an excuse in a particular case or whether I'm not. So the first is motive. Why am I saying that I'm autistic? Am I trying to move forward? Am I trying to get out of a jam? Am I trying to learn how to do better? The second is whether it's solution oriented. Am I going to use this information to push forward and to create better ways of doing things? The third is necessity to disclose. What's the alternative? How relevant is autism in this case? Do I really need to even mention that it's autism? And the fourth is truth. Is it really about autism, or is it about something else? So let me go through a couple of examples. Let's look at that phone call that I failed to make. What was my motive? Pure and simple. It was to get out of trouble, to get the instant forgiveness of the person that I was talking to. Was it solution oriented? Absolutely not. I wasn't saying it so I could be like, how could I do it better next time? No, it was just basically, that's why I screwed up, and you can take it or leave it, and fuck you. Was it necessary to disclose? Well, it really wasn't, because everybody forgets, right? Autism doesn't even have to be part of the conversation. And then about truth. Is it really about autism? In that case, it really wasn't about autism. Autism really was behind why I forgot to call. But the cause of my not calling wasn't the autism. It was failing to use systems that I knew would help me remember, in this particular case, setting an alarm to call. There's no question in my mind. Saying it was due to autism was simply an excuse, not an explanation. Let's look at another example. Requesting an accommodation. It's very common for people on the spectrum to have difficulty communicating on the spot, verbally, as opposed to in writing. I much prefer to communicate in writing as opposed to in person or on the phone. And I have made it clear in my workplace that I will use emails and texts if at all possible. When I make that request, if I don't get pushback, I don't even need to say. If I get pushback, I might ask for it officially as an accommodation. If you do decide that you want accommodation, then your next step will be to go to HR if you have a department and talk with them. They will have the appropriate questions and paperwork and all of that. Don't hesitate to bring it up if you need to. Let's talk about it in a different context. Some people say that texting is not a way to communicate with other people. You telephone or you go to them in person. There are people who will say it really just doesn't even count if you text instead of call. That's a bit of a problem for me. I have taken on the accommodation of texting when possible. My motive is basically to move forward and to help people understand and to make sure that I can communicate comfortably. It is solution-oriented because I am trying to find a way to communicate as opposed to getting out of something. Is it necessary to disclose? In this context, if somebody is pushing back, saying, no, you can't text, you have to make a phone call or it doesn't count. For me, it does count, because that is how I can best communicate to you what is exactly going on that I need to talk to you about. Once I've done that, I can usually talk on the phone fine, but to get it out in the first place, it's almost impossible for me to do it via phone call or in person. I have to do it in writing first. And truth, is it really about autism? Yeah, it is. So, is autism just an excuse? Absolutely not. If I were to mention autism every time autism actually affects me or my actions, it would be in every sentence, because that's how my brain works. It's my basic wiring. I don't hesitate to bring it up if I need to. I just don't always need to. I hope you found that helpful. Please hit all the buttons and give me comments and suggestions. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time.